Good morning. So, yesterday I talked about this situation with ICE, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. You know, I see a lot of people cheering on the death of Renee Good, and it's just insane to me that you could cheer on the extrajudicial execution of a United States citizen. You know what an extrajudicial execution is? That's when a law enforcement agent or federal agent murders somebody without their life being threatened, without there being any legal grounds for justification of deadly force. Okay? This is under the United States Code 18, Section 242, deprivation of rights under the color of the law. Okay? And then it states that if any authority under the color of operating under the color of law, that means a uniformed officer, sheriff, federal agent, border patrol agent, or otherwise, murders first, okay, if they cause an injury in violation of deprivation of rights in any state in this country, they can be put in prison and fined for up to a year. Okay. Now, if they commit aggravated assault or attempted aggravated sexual assault, that's 10 years plus a fine. Okay. Now, if death results from a officer or agent's deprivation of rights under the color of the law, that is life in prison or the death penalty, depending on what the grand jury decides. You know, and you see me looking around here because there's every time I come here, there's fucking people walking around and literally intentionally coming close near me, like they're fucking, you know, trying to hear what I'm talking about. Trying to hear if I'm a domestic terrorist because we have this the CLP Community Liaison Program that the Department of Defense, Department of Homeland Security has. They used to call it "If you see something, say something." Snitch Society. hmm Yeah. So that's why you see me looking around because listen to Black Scout Survival and keep your head on a swivel. Stay strapped. Stay dangerous. You know. People that are cheering this on, you're cheering on. I understand deportation is necessary, okay, but I'm not 15 years old, okay? I'm not a fucking kid in high school, all right? I've lived through a lot of this before. I've seen deportation before. Three different administrations deportations. Bill Clinton deported people, okay? George Bush deported people, and Barack Obama deported people. The thing is, when ICE in 2008, 18 years ago, was doing this, they didn't have full plate carriers. They didn't have Enrique Tarrio Proud Boys. You know, they had normal, you know, ballistics vests and pistols. They did not have rifle platforms with them. They did not look like SWAT teams. They didn't have uh, carrier gear. You know, they didn't have the type of equipment that operators wear. You didn't have a bunch of wannabe fucking special operators doing the shit that they're doing these days. It was way, 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 way different. So, you know, you just have to be aware of the law, and the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. There's no way around it. Okay. All the civil rights attorneys right now, all judge, look at Judge Andrew Napolitano. Great guy. You know, everybody has their opinions, but when you look at people like that, okay, and they bring the facts, they talk about how, you know, ICE right now resembles 1930s Gestapo. And again, I'm an independent, I'm a registered independent, voted Republican ever since I started voting, since the first time I voted. Okay. Because I always believed in, reinvesting capital into a business to give workers better wages. And that is what I usually heard from most of the time until this time, and that's what we were promised, and that's what they still tell us. Turn on Newsmax. Oh, all these jobs that Trump have created. Right. So if you look at the AI data centers that they're building, that they're talking about, their job creation, they hire about 75 people for each data center. 75 people? Really? How's that? That's going to help a whole community? You realize that mining companies in the 1800s hired more people than that. Yeah, and then many of them were corrupt, dirty, shady piece of shit mining companies that fucked over their employees, without a doubt. But they still paid more people and hired more people than that. Yeah, I can't support what ICE is doing right now. With Agent Ross executing, legally executing a United States citizen. Okay, and you people are cheering this on. It's sad to see. I'm an American. I was born in this country. Okay, by my father is a naturalized citizen, naturalized over 30 years ago, and my mother was a U.S. citizen. So I have birthrights in this country. You people that are cheering this stuff on, you want to get rid of birthright citizenship. You don't understand what happens if you get rid of birthright citizenship. You're basically admitting to the Native Americans they were right the whole time. And you know what? Again, I'm not a leftist. I'm not a communist, but I do love, the Navajo people, the Dene, are amazing people, the holy people. They're truly, truly incredible people. And the people that I've talked to and the people that I've personally, had a pleasure of listening to are really good people. And I've met some autumn people too from down here where I am, Pima County. Those are U.S. citizens. Long before U.S. citizen was ever an actual thing, they were Americans. Okay, and then ICE arrested 6 Sioux tribal members and had to release them. Okay, it's already documented. There's no way around this stuff, dude. And some of the tribal leaders apparently are selling out to ICE. They don't want they want the criminals and cartels gone. Okay, I get that. Everybody wants cartels gone, but the problem is they're not really going after the cartels. Okay, and you say it's about immigration. If it's truly and genuinely about immigration, tell me why they're not going after the billion-dollar businessmen that hire illegal immigrants. It's a simple question. I am pro legal immigration, 100%. I support legal immigration, 100%. I think it should be easier to become a United States citizen, meaning they should give you access to the civics test. They should give you educational resources. They should give you career resources if you want to become a United States citizen. Okay? And that is the same resources they should give us. You want to talk about capitalism. We don't live in a capitalist system. We live in a bourgeois socialist system. Socialism for the rich, capitalism for the poor. Corporate socialism, stakeholder capitalism. It's not my opinion. Stakeholder capitalism is Klaus Schwab's desire to implement in America. And this is what we live in right now. They're already implementing social credit scores. You know, that's why people don't care that a United States citizen died, because in your eyes, her social credit score was very low. So she was nothing but a bug to you. Okay. That's a human being that had a child. And that's a child that's going to have to grow up without a mother. That child, that little boy or little girl, I think it was a little boy, not having a mother, are you going to pay for that therapy? No? Then shut the fuck up. Quit cheering that shit on. Okay? Because what if this was the other administration when Joe Biden was out there with a fucking red background behind him talking about everybody's domestic terrorists, okay? Now you motherfuckers are trying to prove him right or something like that. Like you hated Joe Biden so much, and I couldn't stand that fucking motherfucker. I hate the Biden crime family. They're just as guilty as Obama and the Trump crime family and the Clinton crime family. You ain't gonna gaslight me into believing that these are good people. They work for the American oligarchs. They always have. They always will. And the thing about Peter Thiel and Alex Karp, and if you don't know Curtis Yarvin, Nick Land, Mentions Mood Good, almost said something to get me banned. Because what he is, traditional fasci doesn't allow what they consider themselves neo-reactionaries. They consider themselves fascists behind closed doors. That's not my opinion. I've read Dark Enlightenment. I read 60 pages of that shit. I don't even know if it was longer, but that's all I could find was 60 pages, and I'm not buying that motherfucker's book because that dude is a douchebag. Fuck Nick Land. Fuck Alex Karp. Peter Thiel. Joe Lonsdale. These people, again, they do not believe that democracy and freedom are compatible, right? What they do believe is compatible is the United States being a monarchy and Trump being the king. That's not my opinion. That is Curtis Yarvin. You don't know who Curtis Yarvin is? Curtis Yarvin introduced Peter Thiel to J.D. Vance, and then through Curtis Yarvin, organized the first meeting of J.D. Vance and Donald Trump. J.D. Vance was bankrolled by the CIA. Peter Thiel was bankrolled by the CIA. Palantir was given their first contract by Barack Obama to seek out and hunt down former CIA asset Osama bin Laden. You wanna say he's not a CIA asset? He was in the White House with Bill motherfucking Clinton. Okay, just like Al Shara used to be known as Al Jalani, current president of Syria, led ISIS for over a decade, murdering Christians and Muslims. Okay, I know what I'm talking about. This is all verified fact. You can go look up, do the research. You go on independent Syrian media and look up Al Shara. Okay, Al Jalani changed his name to Al Shara once he became the president, to become the president, rather. It's all documented, right? There's PBS documentaries about this shit. All right. They went and followed the dude around. They interviewed him. All right. So you're not going to gaslight me on this. They invited him to the White House. 10 years' time, you're going to see Pete Hegseth, the likes of him and his cronies. They're going to designate this man as, he's going to get so full of rage, and then they're going to blame him for a false flag terror attack, just like they did with Osama bin Laden. Okay. So you want to go back to 9/11? We're talking about IDF, ICE. Okay, it's all relevant because all this deportation stuff was going on back then. It was just totally, totally calm compared to this shit. What you going on right now? You know, not the same shit. 9/11, 2021. I mean, 2001. Excuse me. September 11th, 2001. There were five Israelis that were arrested filming the buildings collapsing. And when they were asked by NYPD why they were there, they told them they were there to document. How were you there to document it if you didn't know it was going to happen ahead of time? Oh, and then they went on Israeli TV, which is Mossad operated, and then they said that they were here to document it. And they laughed about it. They had jokes about American people dying, but bad Islam, right? Doesn't mean bad Jew either. Bad Zionist. Because you know what a Zionist is? Is a Jewish extremist, a supremacist, rather. They're the ones that stand in front of regular, good, loving Jewish people, Jews, the peaceful ones. Zionists stand in front of them and say, let us protect you, while they're the ones pointing a gun at them. The IDF formed from the Stern Gang, Irgun, and Lehigh. All right. And I talked about this on my show, Shaking the Hidden Hand podcast. So go listen to it. Okay. Go listen to the episodes about Zionism, and I explain it very clearly. They first used a car bomb in 1939. The pager bombs that they use are an evolution of what started off as a letter bomb invented by a Lehigh member. Lehigh is one of the three terrorist organizations that documented, certified terrorist organizations that formed the IADF or IOF, depending on what side you stand on. So these groups were very, very vile and violent, hateful towards the Semitic people, Arabs, genuinely, authentically Semitic people, Arabs. And the people doing it were English, New Zealanders, Australian. And that's not my opinion. Okay, I'm watching documentaries on this, and you can see the old veterans, 67-year-olds, talking about it. Okay, now they call themselves Israeli, and they threw the first act of terrorism. They threw actually a guy disguised himself as an Arab, a Lehigh or Stern Gang terrorist, dressed up in Arab garb, and went into an Arab market with an IED, the first ever IED, in a wheelbarrow full of fruit. And he was spotted by an Arab woman, a shopkeeper, and called out. And one of the a male shop owner grabbed his rifle, as the woman called him out. The Zionist terrorist Englishman is what he was. Literally, he was from England. Ran away because he was exposed and caught, and he got shot in the back. And they went and searched the cart, and they found the bomb. IED, first ever IED ever created. So, you're not going to tell me that Muslims are the problem, that illegal immigrants are the whole sole cause of the problem. I hear that all the time. That the economy is so bad because of illegal immigrants. Excuse me for my error in speech. I do not have a stutter. It's just an error in speech. Got caught up and slipped up in my own mind. I am a human being. I'm not a robot. I'm not AI. None of this is altered by AI. I don't have a chip in my head. I got one on my phone and my computer. We're living in a dystopia right now, and a lot of you people are cheering it on, which is very sad. You know, checking on the time there. You have to forgive my close in on the Vigilance Elite hat. And I'm not doing a plug for Sean Ryan, you know, not at all. Not also not disrespecting him either. No disrespect to those guys. Those guys are so well trained and disciplined that I just can't see them ever. Sean Ryan, he's a conservative, okay, and he was opposed to the use of force that Derek Chauvin used on George Floyd, even though he admitted, just like myself, George Floyd was a violent criminal with a violent past. That did not mean he deserved an execution like that or the fentanyl. He just didn't deserve. He should have been, left in the fucking truck because they had him in the truck and then they pulled him out. And, I can't breathe and all that shit. And you can't compare George Floyd to Renee Good, okay? Because in most states, what George Floyd went to prison for, the only reason he went to prison is because the woman that he invaded the home of was not armed with a rifle or shotgun. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to say he deserved what he got from Derek Chauvin. Okay. I won't say that. But he could have got a different result from the woman that he robbed, you know? So don't compare George Floyd to Renee Good. Renee Good was waving ICE officers around her. She was not blocking traffic. She let cars pass her. She was telling ICE officers to go around her so she could get turned around. She was trying to do a U-turn. She had just dropped her kid off at school. Do you genuinely believe to yourself that this woman and her wife went to drop their kids off school? They thought, I'm going to go drop my kid off school and then cause a fucking shit with ICE. No, they were going home. They were trying to get home where they left at 9 in the morning or so. And so they tried to say, oh, they were following ICE around. They had 45 minutes maximum from the time that they dropped the child off to the time that she was executed to be following ICE around. So you ain't going to gaslight me. You're not going to convince me of that. Nah. You know, again, go read the United States Code 18, Section 242, deprivation under the, of rights under the color of the law. Okay? Any authority figure operating under the color of the law in a uniform that commits a violation of the deprivation of rights, they don't give an individual in any state due process, and that results in a death, faces life in prison or the death penalty via grand jury trial. So you can prove you're a genuine piece of shit by cheering on the death of a United States citizen, saying she deserved it. You know, like the guy I met at the last place that I was staying. You know, Alexander said his name was. Said right away, I'm not a Fed. You know, I got Fed vibes right away. So, you know, I played it off. I talked to him for a bit. But then last night I sent him a text at United States Code 18242, and I talked about how Jonathan Ross is going to face death penalty via grand jury in the next 2 years because we're in the second year of Donald Trump. And damn, does it fucking feel long. You know, and I voted him. I'm not proud of that anymore. I don't like the guy anymore. To me, he's got mental health issues, and I didn't like Joe Biden. Okay, he's got physical health issues. He's not healthy at all. To me, it almost seems like they plan on him dying and then putting JD Vance in power. That's what the ultimate goal is. It's why JD Vance is the president. You always look at the man behind the president. Okay, go back to JFK. You just, if you're not familiar with civics and the intelligence role in U.S. politics and international politics, then you probably believe everything that Jesse the Jew Cuckwater says. And I'm probably going to get banned for saying that because I said a word, you know. Again, I'm gonna have to clarify. I don't hate Jews. I love peaceful Jews. What I don't like are agitators pretending to be Christians, going out there burning Bibles. Jake Lang. You know, I don't know if that describes you, Carolyn Brasinko, but you sure remind me of Jake Lang. Pretending to be conservative, but you're really, really, really from the little hats. You tiny hats are mad. And I'm not talking about Jesus loving ones. You know, the Bible, they wake up or they go to bed every night, traditional Judaism, and they read the Bible and the Torah. Okay, because it's essentially Torah is the Old Testament. Some people, a lot of them read it together. They read the Bible and the Torah side by side. That's a fact. That's not my opinion. It's not conjecture because I listened to a lot of Jewish people. They're really, you know, I don't have a prejudice against any one religion, except for, you know, political religion, cultism, regardless if it's Joe Biden, Barack Obama, Donald Trump. I don't fucking care. I'm not going to blindly follow anybody. I don't blindly follow. I've experienced that, okay? I've been involved in cults before. I've been manipulated. I've survived more than a decade living with a narcissist, you know, a Machiavellian narcissist with dark triad personality traits that loves and gets off on manipulating people. You know, I don't like to be around people a whole lot. You know, I'm a very introverted person. I like to spend time on my own. That's why you see me here. You know, you know, I'm sitting here at a park next to a grill, you know, listening to the birds chirp. And I know I'm on a fucking list as a domestic terrorist somewhere. That's just the way this fucking country is. Probably have been for a long time. But now it's pretty fucking scary when they can just roll up and fucking disappear you. So don't roll up on me and try to disappear me. You're not gonna fucking like the conversation we have, you know, because I know my rights, and you're not gonna convince me that I don't. Last time I had an interaction with a police officer, I made it aware that I knew my rights, and he was very respectful. You know, I don't know the man's name, don't care to drop his name because he was very respectful, very polite, you know. No, he's not my friend. But when I said I don't consent to search, but I'll empty my pockets for you and show you I don't have anything dangerous on me, you know, he was cool with that. so I respect it. He wasn't like these ICE agents. He didn't try to keep the door down. You know, I didn't get arrested. I didn't get no charges, nothing like that. But you know, I've had interactions with police before where they were horrible, where I had, not realized at that time because of the trauma that I had experienced mentally and physically that I had been deprived of my rights. I got kneed 6, 7, 8 times in the spine by a Pima County Sheriff's deputy. And when I asked him, this was over a argument, you know, between a family member where their emotional intelligence that, and mine was a little bit lower back then too, but they started screaming at me and I screamed back. And their decision was to call the cops and say the cops are going to come talk to you. And in this state, if you do that, they call that a domestic dispute, which I ended up getting disturbing the peace. I offend people. Okay, I'll make your fucking soul shake if your soul isn't in the right place. Because if you're the type of person that believes that Renee Good deserved to die, you're the type of person that has no objectivity, excuse me. You have zero objectivity for what happens around you. That means that federal agents can show up to your neighbor and shoot them in the face, and you wouldn't give a fuck if their political stance was opposing or oppositional to yours. When did America become the country that cheers on the death of other Americans? Because I thought we conservatives were supposed to be against what Barack Obama did, sanctioning drone strikes on United States citizens. Everybody that I'd always listened to that considered themselves conservative was always against that. But now when it's Donald Trump doing the same thing, saying ICE can just go execute people, Christy Nome, Tom Ho, man, you're all for that? Really? Because it seems to me like your brain is being programmed by algorithmic means. You look at how an algorithm programs a computer. Zero and ones is the original binary. Okay. I studied electronics. Know a little bit about binary. We're all zeros and ones. Are you a zero? Or are you the one? Or are you just someone? Are you no one? I'm no one. I'm just Chris. You know, there's a reason why I come out here to the park because it's peaceful, it's beautiful, it gives me peace of mind, it's quiet, there's no drug deals going on. You know, there's been a few times I've been here where there was homeless people, but they were always quiet, and I never got bothered by anybody here. Come sit out here with my computer and film a video for my YouTube channel. My goal is to get to 100,000 subscribers in a year. That's a big goal, but they say you gotta reach for the moon to land with the stars. So my favorite podcast host, my favorite radio host, Clyde Lewis, Ground Zero. He is recuperating from surgeries and medical complications, which is messing with me right now because that's my friend. I've known that guy for over a decade now and have so many conversations and excellent fucking laughs with that guy. I mean, Clyde Lewis is a 30 plus year radio veteran. He's a legendary radio voice. He's the voice of the Toxic Avenger um, animated movie. You know, he is the number one paranormal nighttime radio show, number one paranormal radio show on the air at all. Okay. So, I don't have any business affiliation with Ground Zero or Clyde. He's just a friend of mine. And so if you listen to this, send some prayers out to Clyde because he's, you know, not feeling so well lately and he needs that love. That's the type of person I am. I'm not this type of person that goes and, oh, you deserve to die. Fuck you if you think that way. Fuck you. You're out there cheering on the death of American citizens. Fuck you. That goes for you people who are all supportive of drone strikes on American citizens under Obama. It's the same shit. Same shit, different administration. Wake up. Stop looking left or right. You leftist, you fascist. Well, okay, the problem is if you support what ICE is doing right now, because they're enacting this neo-reactionary movement, neo-reactionaryism is quite literally new fascism, new age fascism. Classical fascism didn't allow um, homosexuality, factually. This is not my opinion. This is not a derogatory, you know, slander or disrespect towards homosexual people. You know, what you do behind your own closed doors is your business. Just keep it out of my face, please. Don't go parading it, around my neighborhood. I don't mean like, I'm not saying like an actual parade. I mean like trying to draw attention to yourself. I don't care what people do as long as you're not hurting somebody. Okay. As long as nobody's being hurt as a result of what you're doing, do it. Except for fentanyl. Don't fucking do that shit, man. That fucking shit stinks. Crack, too. Fucking crackheads, fentanyl heads, meth heads. Fuck that shit, man. You can't fucking get a fucking vape cart from the dispensary. 90% THC, motherfucker. You hit that shit 5 times, you be high to your fucking mind. Nah, you need that fucking fent. Brave New World. Augilus Huxley. Okay? And you probably think I'm just on a diatribe. I'm just rambling on. But, all of this stuff is interconnected. Again, The Brave New World, Augilus Huxley is a dystopian novel that centers around, a modern digital world where everybody is so numbed down by prescription drugs and just casual sex that they have their souls pretty much chained to the physical realm. They have no spirituality at all. And so again, why I come to this park, man, it's a light spiritual experience to be around birds and shit like that. And, say what you want. Oh, you're a pussy soon. That sounds like a Disney movie or something like that. You know what? I've heard that shit before, but I've spent time out in nature, motherfucker. Nature and connecting with nature helps your soul, helps your mental health. What doesn't is cheering on the deaths of American citizens. Not understanding ignorance of the law is no excuse to violate the law. That means Jonathan Ross being in violation of deprivation of rights under the color of the law. Him being ignorant of that doesn't excuse him of actually violating the law itself. Doesn't excuse him in committing murder. So he's going to face the death penalty or life in prison. Grand jury trial. Count on that. You know, I am not advocating for any sort of violence against federal agents at all. They are pushing for an American insurrection because they think that they're going to be able to use drone strikes and all this stuff to defeat the American people and scare them into a corner. And that's a scary, scary notion when your government wants that to happen. When you have, fake Christians, Jake Lang, etc., trying to cause a war between Christians and Muslims, and you're trying to start this stuff in the street, you go out there and get piss thrown on you, you dork. You deserve that. Again, I don't condone violence, but you deserve that shit. Definitely wasn't in varsity. Uh, you know, it is to me, it's a sad day in America when you see people cheering on the Gestapo. And if you're gonna say I'm a communist because I compared them to the Gestapo, I know you're watching Newsmax or Fox News. I know that you love Jesse Waters and Mark Levin, Grant Stinchfield, all these fuckers, these cucks that have sold their soul to Bibi Netanyahu to regurgitate blatant Hasbara, horrible propaganda. And anybody with an IQ over 99 points, and I'm not saying that my IQ is not 99 points. It's a few points above that. Yeah. I'm not gonna fucking pat myself on the back. I'm not a genius, anywhere near it. And for that matter, even if you are a genius, it doesn't mean you're a fucking good person. It actually doesn't mean you're very smart or successful. It just means you have a high capacity for understanding and comprehending information, intellectual capacity. Well, I've been talking for 34 minutes. The primary point of this discussion, this monologue, was to bring awareness to the United States Supreme Law, the Constitution, the United States Code 18, Section 242, deprivation of rights under the color of the law. It is crucial and necessary as a United States citizen. It is your duty as a United States citizen to know civics and to know the United States law. Again, ignorance of the law is no excuse to break the law. That goes for you, federal agents, and law enforcement officers as well. Okay? That's why there's so many amazing civil rights lawyers out there that get your body cam videos and you end up getting sued. Somehow, like Bisbee police, they promote their motherfuckers to chief after they violate the Constitution. Damn, gotta love small American cops. You know, when you could just violate somebody's first, Fifth Amendment right and not give them due process, and you get a promotion, makes me wonder if your fucking department's dealing dope too after they confiscate that shit. You're some dirty ass oinkers, aren't you? And I'm not saying all law enforcement are pigs remotely, because there's good cops out there, that do good things. They help people. They treat people kindly with decency. They have good hearts. They want to make a difference. Okay. But then you have people like these Azov guys come from Ukraine, and you go look at some of these videos and you hear Ukrainians that sound like Ukrainians to me because they're not Americans. They're yelling, and when you're yelling, you can hear their European accent, their Slavic accent. So it's obvious to me that what's going on right now is just like what happened in 1930s Germany or under FDR with the Japanese. They're all dangerous. They're all terrorists. You got to lock them all up. Due process. That's a thing. It's a constitutional right, God-given right. And if you think that the Constitution doesn't apply to everyone, you're wrong. All of the Bill of Rights doesn't apply to everyone. The First Amendment applies to everyone. Third Amendment applies to everyone. The Fourth Amendment applies to everyone. The Fifth Amendment applies to everyone. The only thing that an undocumented immigrant can't do is buy a gun legally and vote. They still have a right to see a judge in due process. They have a right to resist your search and seizure. It doesn't say U.S. citizens in the Constitution. It says we the people. And then they ratified that to include everybody because at first it didn't include black people and then Native Americans. You know, we talk about the Three-Fifths Act. I know about a lot of stuff. I love history because if you don't know history, you're doomed to repeat it. And I ain't repeating history. Right now, what I'm trying to do is avoid homelessness, trying to get a job. I'm on the verge of homelessness right now. So help me out. You know, I have a Patreon. I'm not going to ask for donations because I only have one subscriber right now. Help me out by subscribing to my channel, sharing it, you know, post a comment. Let's have a discussion, a civil discussion. None of this Carolyn Brasinko name calling. You have 15 seconds to answer me before I ban you, you little bee, and all that nonsense of emotional intelligence of a toddler. Okay. I know how to communicate effectively without a communications degree. So again, let me know what you think. You know what I think. I'm going to keep doing this probably every day as much as I can. Help me get to 100,000. You know, I got one subscriber. Thank you, for your subscription. Share that. Your friends and family, people that you know that agree with you, even if they don't, try to get the information out there. It's crucial to get people informed and enlightened. You know, again, ignorance of the law is no excuse in breaking the law or supporting breaking of the law. Okay. So, and you can't tell me I support illegal immigration because I already clarified that. So again, I'm Chris. I'm your host of Shaking the Hidden Hand podcast on my YouTube channel. Go listen to my show on all the podcast platforms. Let me know what you think. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. You have a wonderful day. I'll be back later.